Okay, at 7 o'clock, I'll call the meeting to order for the CIC meeting of,
This meeting is being recorded.
call the meeting to order of the CIC of November 6, 2023. Dennis, would you please call the roll?
Okay. Beginning with Kanema, Linda.
Present.
I am present. Caulfield, Dan. Present. Elyville, Carla.
Here.
And Dee Dee, you're on Zoom?
Here.
Great. Hillendale, Josh.
Here.
Sarah.
Here.
McLaughlin, Denise.
Here.
And Will.
Here.
And Park Place, we have Steve.
Here.
And Bob.
Here.
Do we have Emily out there at all? No, it doesn't. I believe that's our roster tonight. We have Adam here. Okay, Bob?
Our first presentation was scheduled to be John Lewis, but he called and told me that he's not feeling well today, so he's will come at another meeting.
We do actually have Josh Wheeler on Zoom. He is going to do the presentation in John's lieu of John. So
Okay,
I'm going
great. He
to.
didn't tell me about that. So.
It happened earlier, and I didn't get a chance to call you because I was trying to fix things.
Yeah. Okay. So.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make him co-host so he can share. No, I want to give him co-host, not full. Offer. Oh, hey, Emily's here. You can just under share screen. Okay. Oh, that's right. I'm getting used to Teams again.
Jared, I believe I'm sharing now.
Yeah, actually, I think you are. How about that? All right, cool. I guess I already did that. I'm better than I thought.
Hey, Josh.
Hi there. Are you ready for me?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Thank you for having me tonight. Sorry that John could not be here. This is a shortened version of what he was going to provide. I have 2 items that relate to things that I'm directly responsible with that we'll share with you tonight. So again, my name is Josh Wheeler. I'm the Assistant City Engineer in the Public Works Department for Oregon City. The first item I'm going to show you here is the Oregon City Loop Trail Refinement Plan. And this picture in front of you is the project overview. The loop trail actually comes from the Trails Master Plan, and it encircles the entire city. Much of the trail is within urban growth boundary or outside city limits, and so it's going to take a while to make that reality happen. But we have looked at pieces of this over time, and one of the items that we've done in the past was the McLaughlin to Kanema Trail, which would be a portion of this trail that has been looked at. Currently, Dana Webb is looking at the 99E section of the trail that goes from, I believe, somewhere around 10th Street or so to the tunnel on 99E. The part that I looked at for this refinement plan was these 4 segments, one of which is Myers Road from generally the Claremont area down to 213. A small section over, it's called Orchard Grove to Hazelnut that you might be able to see in purple there. And then 2 little side trails that kind of get people connected over to this loop trail, which is this Claremont Way Trail that goes all the way from Beaver Creek through the shopping center to Malala, along Claremont, and then in back of Gaffney Elementary over to the neighborhood over there. And then a little stretch that is currently a bit of a goat path that has been worn down over time, the Gaffney Elementary School path that goes from Gaffney Lane back to that path in the back. And so we looked at these 4 sections because these are the parts that are buildable within the city limits. And we have a project web page for that as well. What that plan did was it looked at those 4 locations and said, what's it physically going to look like? not just a line on the paper like a TSP, the Transportation System Plan, or a Trails Master Plan, but really what's it going to look like in the field so we can start to get good cost estimates and also really figure out when we get funding and can seek funding and get grant opportunities, what is the plan? And so these are two examples. The one on the left, S22 is the name of the plant in the Trails Master Plan, and it's along Claremont. And so you see the land on the right is kind of that vacant land that is used by parks and public works right now for storage and materials. You see a big path on that side, which would be around 12 feet wide. Tries to stay away from under the power lines as much as possible and closer to the roadway. And then has your normal road cross-section as you're used to seeing out there. Project S30, which I said was over in the Orchard Grove area, that would be done by private development because the section that is missing there is a vacant piece of land that is primed for private development. And then here on the right, we're showing an example of the Myers Road piece that would go from approximately the Leland, where it changes from Leland to Myers, down to 213. And we would actually take any parking that is currently available on the road and take that away and shift the road, and then create this path on there. And so we would take bike lanes away too, so that the bikes go on to the bike path instead. And it requires a shifting of the road to do that. And so that's what this cross-section is trying to show, that the path would be on the west side of the road and the just a regular sidewalk on the east side. And so that's generally what the Oregon City Loop Trail Refinement Plan is. To adopt this plan, we need to go through a public process where we talk to the neighborhoods, which in this case is the CIC. We've also spoken to direct property owners who would be directly impacted with letters and mailers and surveys through the whole process, and ultimately, received good feedback, but no one really said no trail. Some people did not like the trail by me, but could see the use of it. Others found that it wouldn't be that useful of a plan. But it was a mix of opinions, and all that's available on the website, all the feedback that we got. But ultimately, we would be adopting this through an ordinance where we would adopt the plan ancillary to the TSP, much like the Park Place urbanization plan that you saw a few years ago. So that's Oregon City Loop Trail Plan. The other one that I've got is our PMUF, called the Pavement Maintenance Utility Fund. All property owners in Oregon City pay the maintenance fee on their utility bill, which goes towards the resurfacing of our roads, as well as things like slurry seals, chip seals, crack seals, and in-house paving that we do. And we create a 5-year plan that gives us a guideline on what roads to prioritize and how to use that funding appropriately. This program began back in 2008, and we've had 2 5-year plans, one that went from 2013 to 18 and one that went from 18 till today. And we're currently underway with the new 5-year plan, which will be published probably middle of next year is where we're targeting. So I said a little bit of that there, but the new plan is underway, and that would cover the years 2025, and these are calendar years, summer 2025 to 2029. And a lot of people will ask, well, how do you prioritize those roads? Like we get, how much money is coming in. You can predict that based on the fees and the amount of properties in the city. But, how do you determine which comes first and when? Why not my road? And questions like that. Well, it's based on the PCI, which is called the Pavement Condition Index, and that's a rating that's given to our roads every 3 years on a scale of 0 being the worst and 100 being the best. It's also based on is there a utility project that is about to happen, and let's resurface the road right after that? Or is there private development going on? This recently happened over by Gardner Middle School, where we were going to do the roads back in 2020. Well, we delayed it till this year so that Gardner Middle School could complete their construction, so that we didn't have construction traffic beating up the roads. We also look at traffic counts. The higher the traffic count, the more likely the road is going to get prioritized. But we also try, and this is something new we've added, we're looking at the age of the roadway. So if you've got a road that has not been touched since you've lived here, it's probably going to get a better chance of being focused on over this next 5-year plan and potentially into the 6 to 10 years after that. We're trying to catch those lower volume, maybe roads haven't been touched, especially in the lower conditions, to try and bring the entire network up. Because even though there's a handful of people using the road, they pay the fees too, and so we're looking at a way of trying to spread that around.
Josh, we lost your audio for some reason. Doesn't show you muted, but for some reason your audio is gone. I'm not sure if that's an us thing or a you thing. Oh, there you, wait, we heard you.
Okay.
I hear you just fine.
Okay, well, hang there, but that was the end of my presentation. Actually, no, it's not. One more slide, I forgot about that. We do have a webpage update there at the bottom. You can make any comments on roads you would like to see resurfaced at ocpublicworks@orcity.org. And if you're wondering what you currently pay for that, there are the numbers there. Those are published on our website for a single family, multifamily, and then a non-residential fee. So if you have any questions for me, I'm here for that. But ultimately, I appreciate your time tonight.
I have several questions, Josh. This is Bob. The loop trail, is there any signage on any part of that?
There is not currently.
Is there any plan for putting any on?
That has not been discussed. I think where we're at right now is trying to find big sections to get connected where we can have a decent amount of connection and length that makes it feel like a bigger trail. And I think some of that's going to be through seeking grants to get some of this built.
Is there a map available for the proposed trail?
Yeah, it's currently in the Trails Master Plan.
And let's see here. You mentioned shifting roads. That seems awfully expensive in comparison to what just building a trail around a road would involve.
So I guess another way of looking at it would be, I just say shifting roads, the pavement would remain, but because we're taking away the 2 bike lanes, you would actually take the traveled lane and shift it one direction, and then that allows some of it to be removed so that we can have room for the bike path, or the actually multi-use trail. The problem with Myers Road is that we don't have a lot of right-of-way, and the right-of-way we have, the houses are fairly close to it. And so we're trying to keep that into, we looked at various alternatives on how to place a multi-use path in a way that would not infringe upon the front yards of the users there. And so this was a way to do it. Admittedly, it will not be an inexpensive trail, but it probably is the most inexpensive alternative that existed.
Okay, and then on the pavement maintenance utility fees, I just got my utility bill the other day and looked at it, and I'm thinking that's about tripled what it began with, I think, or close to it. How are the increases arrived at? Does that go before the city commission, or is that just somebody's staff decision, or what?
So you are correct. Since 2008, they have increased over time, and I don't remember the exact numbers. We do have them published on our website of where it started and where it is now each year. The initial ones were set based on a rollout plan, and then once it got to, I think it was 2012. I'm doing this by memory. Then it was based on the CPI every year, which is the same way our permit fees are established in planning and engineering. And so that's, you know, if the CPI is 2%, they vote by 2%. If the CPI is 6%, CPI stands for Consumer Price Index, for those that don't know. And that's something that's published every year for our region, and that's how they are determined.
That's all the questions I
I
had.
can tell
Anybody?
you,
Yes, Josh.
part of this 5-year plan is trying to also answer the question, do we need to continue raising fees with the CPI, or have we stabilized the system in such a way that we can either get rid of that fee or flatten the fee? That's going to be coming out. I do know that the current funding continues to increase, but the roads have stabilized to a payment condition that on average has flatlined now. We're no longer seeing an uphill to it. And I think if we flatlined our revenue or cut it, we would see our conditions start to go in a downward way. But we're going to have some reports out there that will be available online that's going to show more of that and try and theorize some of that.
Hey Josh, this is Josh from the Hillendale neighborhood. I was looking at that map that you had where the S22 path was going to go and where you guys were planning on putting that, at least how it was pictured. Looked like you were going to have a 12-foot path that was possibly going to infringe on the existing PGE poles and lights that were there. Has that been discussed with PGE about moving those? You know, it's not the big towers that are out there that is Bonneville or whatnot, but it's just the wood poles, right? It's got the highline power on them.
Yep.
Have you guys had discussions with PGE about moving those?
Yeah, so S22 is probably one of the easiest projects to realize, but also some of the most complicated because of PGE, BPA, both of their lines, as well as property owners in that area who, in some cases, have taken over the right-of-way, you know, assuming it was their property. So there are definitely some sensitive discussions that need to occur and cooperation that needs to occur there. We have talked to PGE to understand what was possible. We have talked to BPA, and we had a neighborhood meeting for those directly affected who gave some of their comments there. If we found grant funding for that, we would continue to have those discussions. But we didn't find from any of those conversations anything that would tell us the project was not feasible.
Okay, thank you.
Would they move the poles or not? That we'd look at that in technical design. But if it was necessary, there would be a cooperation that would be possible.
Excellent, thank you.
No other questions? Okay, thank you, Josh. That was good information.
I have a question.
Oh,
I have a question about the road where you're sharing the paths, where there aren't any bike paths on the road. Is one side of are bikes and pedestrians going to be sharing the same space, or will one side be bikes and one side be pedestrians?
So with the Myers Road section, we would take the bike lanes off of Myers Road for that portion of Myers that has bike lanes. And bikes would go on the multi-use path, which was shown on the west side. Pedestrians, there would be a sidewalk on the east side, but these paths are also not called bike trails. They're called multi-use trails. So scooters, pedestrians, bicycles, everyone could use that on that west side, but only pedestrians would use the east side.
Okay.
And that's something that we would work out in the technical details with some striping and some symbols to help people understand who has the rights to be here and there, and, you know, lines for north and south. And so there's some things that we can do technically that help define that as well.
Thank you.
Might have to hire some trail police.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
On the Myers Road, are you going all the way down to 217 or 212, wherever it is, are you, on the new road that is there, are you going to readjust that road? Any of the water drainage fields, do those have to be disturbed? Or
So when the new Myers Road was built, east of 213, it considered this loop trail in that area. And what the loop trail does, it actually starts at 213 currently and goes into the college campus, and then the loop trail goes through the college campus and then jumps out at the other side at Beaver Creek. And so everything is put in place so that nothing has to be redone in that area. This would just take it to 213. Then people would need to use the crosswalks to cross over and get to the trail that then takes you to what is essentially the Clackamas College Loop Trail itself.
I guess that's all the questions. Thank you, Josh, very much for that good information.
Appreciate it.
Our next presentation will be from Christina Robertson-Gardner about the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Project. And welcome home, Christina.
Thank you. It's kind of fun to be on this side. I'm passing out our fact sheet. You can take as many as you want if you want to pass them out. So I'm here tonight to talk about the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Plan, and this is really phase 3 of the plan, and it's from 10th Street down to the railroad tunnel or railroad or Tumwater Village. So there's lots of different ways to explain where the extent is. And raise your hand if you received an email from me on Friday. You might want to check your inbox. I try to get everybody on the CIC in on the email. So now you're in the interested parties list. So you periodically will see some emails from me over the next year, just kind of giving you updates. Generally, it'll be when there's city commission briefings or, updates on any decision-making or new products by the design team. So you are in now, so you'll be able to get that information. So, oops. So this presentation we've been giving to our boards and commissions kind of all through the month of October, and I apologize I wasn't able to make it in the October meeting, but I'm here in November, and I can provide a little bit more of an update. But really the goal of this presentation is to provide enough background information to you as CIC members, so when your friends, family members, neighborhood association contacts ask you questions about this project, you'll have a little bit more background. And as always, if there's anything you can't answer, come to me, send me a quick email. I'm happy to either answer it or find a person on the design team, or Dana Webb, our city engineer, who's the project manager on the team. So tonight, I'm going to give you an overview of the project, how we got here, where we're going, and expectations. So the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Plan really is tackling the third phase of a plan that was adopted in 2005, which really attempted for Oregon City to kind of say out loud and put on a plan and adopt it. We are no longer turning our back on the river. Since the 1920s, when 99E came in, we really looked inward as a city and really turned our back on the river. So with the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Plan adopted in 2005, we were able to work on different phases, and then over time even work with ODOT, who owns the facility, on adopting designations that help reduce the speed, allow us more design opportunities, and really allow for that designation of an urban highway segment, where you can have a little bit more options rather than just having a highway run through your city. So the goal really for this part of the project, which is the most complicated because it involves the viaducts. If you haven't, you must all know, but right between 10th Street and 8th Street is actually a viaduct structure. It's really a bridge structure that kind of, a viaduct is an element that basically connects two high points. So the viaducts between 10th and 8th, and then as you go around the the bend, you have our historic arch bridge, and then you have the kind of the bend in 99E heading your way south to the tunnel. So lots of complications in this segment, and it really was the third phase for that reason. We applied for grants a couple years ago, and we've just been slowly working on. Hello? We've been working on putting together a grant to look at the feasibility of a conceptual plan. So this process is not going to give you construction drawings, but it really is that next step. So our goal is to close that gap. If anybody's tried to walk along 99E on that section, it's not safe feeling. It's not somewhere you really want to stay for a long time. And we call it a complete street design, and that is a kind of a transportation term, but a complete street is a street that's designed for all users, both vehicles and pedestrians and bicyclists and transit users, but also all ages and abilities. So is this a street designed for your grandchild and your grandmother? I like to say about it. So if you don't have a street that's designed for either, then you don't have a complete street. So this is the project area, and you'll notice that Main Street is included in that, and that is because if you're doing any good engineering design or any good public policy design, you always have a no-build option, because you always have to compare that. So our no-build option is rerouting pedestrians and bikes along Main Street. It's not something the city wants. That would be really considered a failure, but as the design process moves on, you may see, well, what would that option entail and what are the costs, benefits? And you always want to see that when you're looking at a public design process, because you need to compare the costs of the alternatives to a no build. So that's why you see Main Street in there. And I don't, right now we don't have any design for Main Street, and that may be analyzed later on in the process, but that is why that's in that project. And we call it 10th to Tumwata, and Tumwata Village is the name of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde's former Blue Heron paper mill, and they have a fair amount of frontage on this project as well, and we are working with them as property owners. So this is a kind of an overview we turned in when we applied for the grant a couple years ago, and it really does show kind of the existing conditions of this segment, the kind of crumbling sidewalks, very tight sidewalks along the 99E Riverside. The viaduct, you can see a picture of the viaduct at the top from the river, which is a nice view. That's generally where the 8th Street dock was historically, if you know where that is, those stairs that go down right behind the county courthouse. And then we have some views of what phase 1 looked like, and I'll kind of go through what we've done in phase 1 and 2 in the coming slides. So this was a regional flexible funds grant. We were awarded this to do a conceptual plan. So this is really an alternatives analysis. It's really looking at what is the approach, and a conceptual design will be adopted. There will be a second phase of a schematic or kind of finalized design before you move through construction plans. And one of the biggest concepts is in 2005, when the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Plan was adopted, ODOT initially said that the viaduct was on their replacement schedule. And so we said, great, we'll build a new viaduct, and there'll be these big wide sidewalks and bike trails, it'll be amazing. It's not on their replacement schedule. So now, knowing that the viaducts aren't gonna be replaced anytime soon, and because of the age and the design of the viaducts, we're not most likely gonna be able to kind of hang anything off the viaducts. We're really looking at a standalone structure. So does that structure stay parallel? This is on the riverside, not the whole design, but just the riverside. Does that design stay parallel with 99E? Does it dip down a little bit and come back up again? Is it a combination of the two? Those are some of the alternatives that the design team is looking at. So just a little timeline of how we got here. Once again, we adopted the plan, and as a planner, sometimes you always think, I'm sure you guys think, why is another plan for the city, another thing like the streetscape? But that is how you get money to build things in phases. You first get it adopted, you get a resolution of support by the city commission, and you apply for grants. So adopting that plan, even though our final design for phase 3 might be quite different, you know, how many years later, that got us to this grant for phase 3. So adopting plans are important. Phase 1 was 2009, that was 205 to 10th Street. So that's the section with the Willamette Terrace and the 3 big art installations that try to show Willamette Falls. And then phase 2 is Dunes Drive, which is really the shopping center and the hotel, to the Clackamas River Gladstone Bridge. Once again, I explained we worked to adopt a special transportation area designation and a mixed-use multimodal area, which is a fancy word of saying this is an urban downtown. So those 2 designations provide a lot more design ability for us than a traditional highway. Real quickly, 2008 to 2012, so on your left, you have a before phase 1 was adopted. There was a slip lane where people kind of barreled down trying to get to Canby. There was no way to cross as a pedestrian from 14th Street to the river. And the orientation to get onto 205 North really did not allow good pedestrian crossing. So it was hard to, if I was at Lithia Subaru, it was hard to walk underneath the 205 bridge to the shopping center. So you can see in 2002, we have a lot more opportunities of pedestrian crossing back and forth, both at 14th Street and the I-205 interchange. We also have provided additional connections down to Sportscraft and Clackamas River Park, if you've seen the back end. Right now, it's not available with the construction for the 205 bridge, but our goal is to find as much pedestrian connections in as many areas as we can. It shows Google Street View above, kind of before phase 1 was built, and you see phase 1 below. I like that there are people walking. Go Google Street View. Phase 2 was once again with the shopping center. Prior to that, there was no pedestrian connection on the south side of the Dunes Drive. So you only could get across 99E on the north side of the Dunes Drive intersection. And then Firestone Alley, which you'll see in the red circle, was oriented so that once again there was better connection if I was a pedestrian along that east side. And here we are today, phase 3, the most complicated part. So while this is a pedestrian and transportation project, it's really also an urban design project. How can we build a shared use path that helps reorientate the community back to the river, provides lots of different pedestrian connections, so people who are traveling up and down this section, be they tourists, families out, commuters, feel comfortable popping into downtown and so forth. You know, there's lots of that cross connections. So how does it meet our safety goals, tourism goals, economic development, but culturally, we have the historic Arch Bridge, which is on the National Register, and we have sensitive cultural sites for Native American tribes who are all being coordinated and consulted through ODOT, who is in charge of that consultation process as part of our design work. So the adoption process, this is where I come in as the planner. Their city commission has 4 briefings that they're going to be doing with the design team. And actually the first one is tomorrow. So you can attend or watch later or live and kind of see the initial directions. They'll be looking at the vision corridor, kind of the aspirational statements, as well as the approval criteria, and some first look at different ways of splitting out the alternatives of just the riverside right now. We're really looking at this bridge piece and kind of cracking that nut before the rest, working on the rest of the corridor, because kind of the decision of the bridge approach is going to lead to kind of the design approach somewhat to the rest of the corridor. So we start with technical investigations by their consultant team, both geological, structural, cultural, environmental, all those technical investigations, working with ODOT, ODOT's maintenance team, what can we find out about this area, Tribal outreach, Roy Waters, which is, he's the main archaeologist, senior archaeologist for ODOT, and has very strong ties to all 5 tribes who are interested in this area and has been worked with them both on the pedestrian Westland, Oregon City Ped Bridge last year, as well as this project. So a lot of continuity of conversations, and he'll be bringing their comments into this process. Tourism folks, what design, what do they see as helpful or hurtful to bringing people in, both into downtown, but also able to use our river. The general public, stay tuned. There is a virtual open house for about 2 weeks in early December, where you'll have ability to look at the different design alternatives and provide your first initial feedback. And then equity approach, as always. Who's missing from the conversation? Who will be using this that we don't know yet? Who do we not normally reach out to or are harder to reach out to, and how can we reach out to those folks? So we're doing some kind of initial stakeholder engagement for folks that may not, automatically click on a link and tell us what they think. The formal adoption process, actually just as Josh Wheeler explained for the refinement plan, is this phase 3 design gets adopted by the City Commission through a public hearings process as an ancillary document to the transportation system plan. And that gives us the ability to apply for the grants for the next phase of design. This whole concept area will probably not be all built in one phase. This is so complicated, but we may be looking at different grants. Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde has their frontage. They'll be working on their master plan. So we'll just be looking at can we build this in different phases and in different times, and what grant monies make sense for what pieces of the project. More succinctly, what's chosen is the combination of what is technically feasible and what's the community vision. And that is what will be adopted. But as I said, this is more than just a transportation plan. This is a urban design waterfront plan, a little bit modified. So as we move forward this next year, like what do you want out of this? We, at a minimum, we want to create a complete street. We want everyone to feel comfortable walking, and what? What do you see this could be built off of? How could we springboard this work into more that we want for our community? And next steps, as I mentioned tomorrow, the City Commission will be looking kind of at initial alternatives and confirming the vision and the approval criteria. And the public will have the first of the 2 open houses in December. We're still meeting kind of with those groups that are that we're reaching out to. We've worked with, actually tomorrow, we'll be presenting to Clackamas County's pedestrian and bike advocacy group. We've been working with the Housing Authority, the school district, reaching out to people that aren't automatically clicking on open house links. So if there's somebody you think we need to have a special touch to, DOCA and all the downtown business associations will be meeting with them individually in the new year to try to really understand what are their needs and wants. So let me know if there's a group you think really needs to be kind of have a special touch. And we have a project page. You can get access to it on the planning page. If you go to departments and planning, it's at the bottom left. It's also on the public works page, but because of how their site is configured, it's a little hidden, but it's the same page, it's just mirrored. You can get it through a planning page. And this is what the City Commission will be looking at tomorrow. I grabbed this screenshot from the email I sent out on Friday. So you'll see some of these alternatives are variations of parallel to the river, dropping down, parallel to 99E, and then dropping down to the river, or a combination of those. So it's kind of the big picture piece. And then as it gets to the historic arch bridge, are you going under the bridge? Or are you going kind of threading yourself through the arches? So there's different variations of how the heck do you get around the historic arch bridge. I'm here for questions. I see Carla has one, but I'm available for questions people have.
I was talking to some people about this, just people are curious what's going on. So obviously, we don't have any plans for Riverwalk. This is very nice plan to implement. Is there any future hope? Because they say the Willamette Falls Trust is not going to our side of the river anymore. It's going on the other side. Is there any hope of igniting a Riverwalk that would connect this kind of together as a ultimate project?
Yes. And this, let me actually go back. I'm gonna go back to here. So actually, no, I'm gonna go back to the photo. Where is there we go, that's a great one. So if you can see right where the bend in 99E, like where it says like the B for Boulevard, and then you go kind of around, and right there is Water Street, which is going to be coming back as part of the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde's master plan. Sometime this year, there'll be, not calendar year because we're at the end of the year, but sometime in the next year, they'll be coming to the Planning Commission and working on revising their master plan for their vision. And public open space will be a part of their master plan. And so really this connection will be connecting up to public open space that starts at Water Street. How that is laid out and the details of that isn't really part of the master plan. The master plan is more of the big framework plan and the pieces of the puzzle. And so those conversations still have to happen. But the goal of this is to absolutely connect right up into Water Street.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Dennis.
In none of this, I see any consideration towards parking. It's always an ongoing issue with traffic and the development of all this. When consideration on parking be a part of the greater whole of this?
Well, this is also great. So it's how do you compartmentalize this deliverable, right? Which is how does ODOT work with the city to come up with a pedestrian bike access within their right of way. So this is just work within the ODOT right of way. And there will be conversations of, do we keep this parking spaces on the east side or the west, on the river side? Do we give those up for, those are those give and takes that will be part of that alternatives analysis. But this is just for the right of way. So the larger conversation of as this segment, right, people aren't going to come for this little segment, but this segment will close the gap in this larger trail network and this larger public access space. I think that's still a conversation to have with the city commission and when that opens. But this is really just work within ODOT's right away. So this is, a piece of the puzzle.
Are we happy with the parking meters? Is that going well? I mean, I don't know if it's appropriate to ask you this, but I mean, it seems like in the last year I was reflecting on a concerted effort on the type of parking down on Main Street, since Main Street is sort of like right in the part of this whole plan. Are we, as a city, are we happy with what we've decided to do with parking meters? I mean, I know there was some confusion about that, where they were mounted, how they were visually seen, were they effective? I go downtown a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm sometimes amiss at where's the meter? And where am I walking to get, my license put into the machine? Sometimes they're not working. And I'm curious if we have addressed that in the greater whole of the plan.
Sure, and at some point I can pass this over to Commissioner Morrow, but the new parking meters in the new app has come out this last year. And as far as I've heard from our code enforcement folks, it's been successful. The long term with parking, I'll put my little parking management hat on, parking's a finite resource in what we have. And so our parking management program is how to make the best use of that resource. I call it like restaurants, how they want to turn as many tables as possible, right? When you have a successful restaurant, you get that table turn. So same thing with with parking, you want to get that successful turn, the right amount, so people still feel that they can park, but they also feel that there's an open space where they want to be. So they always kind of have that 75, 85%. There's always kind of a space open. So that parking management is that balance of how do you best price and locate your parking so that it's accessible, but also open, right? It is a bit of an art and a science. Do you have anything to add?
Sure. So we've had a few presentations in the last year from our traffic consultant about different ways and strategies that we can address the parking issue. It's something that I have a lot of concerns about. So some of the low-hanging fruit that we've been talking about are trying to find ways to reform our permitting system. So we have different permits for parking for long-term users, like employees of downtown businesses, so they don't have to pay every single time they're down for work. We have permits, and we're trying to figure out ways that we can alter those so that more people are using the permit system rather than using the direct street parking, where instead of having your employees use those parking spaces, you can actually have your customers use those parking spaces. And so those are conversations that we're still having, and we're waiting to see some of the alternatives. We continue to work with the private property owners to try and get those extra spaces online as well. We've already done some great work with the after-hours parking at the river crossing, I believe, building, where people can use that after hours as well.
With the employee parking, with the courthouse moving up, a lot of those employees' monthly permits will be up, next summer 25, spring 25. So there's that long-term conversation of how do we best take advantage of this, by the time it's fortunate they're moving up, but how do we take advantage of this and try to get the locations for long-term parking in a safe area, but also, once again, try to move employees off the street and get them into more of the long-term. But right now, it's hard to get, close in long-term parking because a lot of the courthouse employees have that.
Linda?
My question is back to the walk. Oregon City doesn't have any connection to the Willamette River that pedestrians can get to other than down at the park. It would be wonderful if you could have some type of floating dock that would get people down to the river. When I guess you go down and view between 8th and 10th there. Portland has floating docks that they're slanted, so they're wheelchair accessible, strollers, safe, and they float up and down. It'd be wonderful if we could have something like that and get people down. That also might get rid of some of the homeless people who are camping underneath. The more people you see them, then perhaps they would go someplace else.
Oh, I think it's spot on. The conversation, the lower route is really intriguing, but what else are you doing when you go down there? So, this is why the open house, I think, is so important. Really capitalize on, some of the questions will be like, how do you envision using it? What would you want down there to see? How do you envision other family members, kind of, say your grandson and your grandfather using it? People are very interested in accessing 8th Street dock area. Confederate Tribes of the Grand Run may have a dock, but that's long-term, that conversation. So all of this is definitely open in this virtual open house. So trying to put your hat on of how can this meet our needs to provide pedestrian and bike access and close this gap, right, in our system, but also how can we be a springboard to what we want, for our relationship to the river.
And when will that open house be and where?
Sure, it's going to be a virtual open house.
Oh, virtual, okay.
So it's going to be open for about 2 weeks. So when you go on the virtual open house website, when the link is open, it'll be early December for 2 weeks. You'll see a lot of conceptual design. So our design team is putting together a 3D model of the area. And so you'll see a lot of different variations of the alternatives and then kind of put yourself, how would you use it? Do you feel safe with this version? Would you feel safe with this version? How would you versus, what are the things we should know about? So that's the open house piece, is they'll kind of take you through that. But the goal is they'll provide lots of illustrative designs so you can kind of really get yourself into kind of figure out what you think is the best approach for Oregon City. And that's that community vision. I mean, you don't have to be a geotechnical engineer. We'll get all the technical stuff over here. So it's marrying the two together, which is really the city commission will be looking at. Yeah, it's a virtual open house, yeah. It's a fancy way of saying a really, really, really robust survey. But I mean, it'll be a lot. I mean, you should commit 15, 20 minutes to it when it's time.
Funding, are we, I think you mentioned going after grants.
Yeah, I mean, we can't go to the next phase of the design until this phase is adopted. So the goal is, what's our approach? And we'll have a conceptual design, things like enhanced pedestrian areas or even art that the city commission wants. We'll probably be drawing circles around those areas on the conceptual design and says, we want this here, further design later. We want this here, further design later. And so then we'll be working on additional grants to get that design to a better detail, to get stronger cost estimates. And then really it's looking at partnering, it's looking at building portions or all. So we'll be start looking at how do we build it.
Street design standards, are those going to be Oregon City standards or
No, they'll be,
ODOT,
they're
or
ODOT. So
combination?
this is an ODOT facility. So what the final decision, that's the kind of technically feasible, is it has to meet ODOT's design specs, right? This is also a freight corridor. So we can't make these 10-foot travel lanes because, I mean, we could in a local street, but there are specific design specs. But because we're a special transportation area and a mixed-use multimodal, we could have some extra little options. We can provide an understanding of speed, design speed, and things we can do that we couldn't necessarily do with just the standard ODOT. But at the end of the day, it is an ODOT facility, so the technical feasible would mean ODOT has to sign off on the approach. And people have asked, is ODOT going to pay for this? No. This is a city project, so anything beyond existing condition is ODOT maintenance. Existing condition is ODOT maintenance. Anything above that, this is our design and we will need to look for grants to build.
Would ODOT pave the Highway 99 and get rid of all those potholes in Highway 99?
Well, that's a different conversation.
Okay.
Contact ODOT maintenance department.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I got one.
Sure.
The Native Americans, I understand they want to be down at the river. How far do they control around that corner?
Well, that's a little bit more complicated answer, but there are 5 tribes that have shown, that have interest in this area, and they are being outreached and kind of, there's little C consultation and big C consultation. So they're providing consultation, and so they have the right to comment their usual custom practices and how this may impact cultural resources to them. So we will get that feedback back from ODOT. But if you're talking about harvest for fisheries, that is based on federal treaty rights, and I'm definitely not the expert on that, nor as a city employee should really opine on that.
Anybody else? Okay,
Okay,
you,
well, thank you
Christina.
very much. And feel free to email me if you have any questions.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Our next subject is to approve the CIC minutes from October 2nd of 2023. Are there any corrections or changes? I'll take a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the minutes from October of 2023.
I second.
It's been motioned and approved. All in favor, raise your hands. Say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Abstain? Motion passed. The next subject will be our staff liaison update. Jared?
Just one quick update for you. We do have a community engagement specialist who has been hired. Her start date will be Wednesday of next week, November 15th. Her name is Hannah Schmidt. I am very excited to have her aboard. She has a lot of experience in community engagement and outreach and working with reaching out to different groups and getting them involved in processes that I think will lend itself very well to her career here in the city. I'm looking forward to having her aboard, and I think you guys will really enjoy working with her as well.
She will be our official liaison?
Yes, she will be your official liaison. She should be here for the December meeting. I'll be here as well, attempting to show her how these things work. I'm still figuring that one out myself, but the blind leading the blind. But yes, we will. I will be here as well.
That makes it more fun.
Oh, exactly. You know, can't laugh. What are we here for? But yeah, and then it just actually brings me up my question though, is I'm not sure how we work things on the January meeting since the first Monday is the first, so.
We will not have a January.
So it's completely dark all January. Okay. I had a question on that, so now I have that answer.
Any question over here?
Yes.
Is she gonna be full-time?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes, that is fortunately something we were able to get through, so that will make things a lot easier.
Great.
Have anything else, Jared?
No.
One thing I'd like you to do, again, the elections are on tonight's agenda. Could you see that those are kind of like removed?
Yes, let me make a note on that because I've got somebody else helping me to do the agendas, but I will have that
Okay,
removed for the next one.
thank you.
If we're not having a January meeting, when will we have our elections?
The elections will be in February.
February, okay.
Let's see here. The next subject is general business, and I'd like to discuss the postcards. Seem to be an ongoing subject of agreement, disagreement, contention, whatever the heck you want to call it. It's always an exciting part of our meetings. But we seem to have an ongoing problem with and it seems to me that a lot of it points to Buell's. Several meetings in the past, they've not arrived until after the meetings have taken place. And this is in various neighborhoods, so it's not just one neighborhood that it's happening to, where we could point to that neighborhood. And now there's been some old meetings sent to Carla's neighborhood and a mix of old and new meetings. So it's kind of goofy. Dan has told us that the Caulfield neighborhood has been overbuilt by 20%. I'm assuming that you and Jared will be looking into working with that.
We haven't talked about it, but yeah, there was like a $200 extra fee that was normally not there. Normally I follow through on my costs and stuff. I didn't follow through because I figured I was going to be billed the same thing as the last one, maybe up a few pennies on the postage. And when I finally seen a copy of the bill, I seen some charges that shouldn't have been on there because they had a print-ready document.
Okay, well, I'll consider that a neighborhood situation that the CIC doesn't really need to get involved in. It seems pretty simple to me. I mean, the neighborhood puts together their postcard. The postcard draft is sent to the city, and the city reviews it for proper content or improper content, whatever the case may be. It's sent to Buell's. Buell's prints it according to how many copies per neighborhood, and then it's sent to the post office, and hopefully, the post office sends it out in a timely manner. I'm concerned about how many times this has happened.
What is the lead time that Buell's needs to have these postcards out on time? There should be some amount of time that they have to have.
Ask into your mic and.
What is the lead time that Buell's needs to have these postcards to them so they can have them printed? I mean, there should be an amount of time when we send these to the city to review. What time frame is that? And then that should all work back to what time Buell has to print them and then get them to the post office.
I don't have a specific time frame, fortunately. I mean, I've been getting everything from the neighborhoods in a very timely fashion to give us ample time to get it through there. From my observations, it's about a week from start to finish between coming to me, going to Buell's, getting printed, getting mailed.
So our postcard proof should be to you at least 1 week prior to.
I would say at least 2.
2 weeks?
Yeah, two weeks
Okay.
prior, yeah. Just to clear up any, possible issues there. I can't speak to any of the prior incidents. I have no knowledge there. In this most recent one, I can't point to any specific cause for what happened. I spoke with Buell's. They outlined their process for me, and with everything being as they say it is, there was no way that an incorrect postcard should have gone out. They didn't even have, they said they didn't even have that incorrect one on file anymore, the file to print. I don't know if something happened there between there and the post office. If something did happen at Buell's, if something happened at the post office, they had some old ones that got mixed in. I really don't know what the process is where that snafu happened. Unfortunately, without like an in-depth personal knowledge of how all these processes work, that only the people within those organizations have them. I'm not sure what else I can do to try to make sure that this is not an issue again, unless we can look at implementing some sort of additional quality control steps.
Well, I have an idea on that. It would just be a paper trail to acknowledge that things have been done in a timely manner. For example, you could have a checklist. The date received from the Neighborhood Association, the date it was forwarded to Buell's, and the date Buell's sends it to the post office. Of course, they would have to communicate that to you or whoever is in your position, of course.
Yeah, we have the prior information up until that point, and that was kind of what my thought was. If we want to take an additional, step in the quality control process and have them send a proof back, so that we can make sure that that is indeed the file that we want going out. We would have to add, another couple days to the timeline just to make sure that we're all good between coming back to the city, going back to the rep, or unless, the neighborhood rep trusts the liaison to know, yet this is indeed the right information. We can set up the process specifics later, but that's the only additional step that I've been able to come up with in my mind to help try to mitigate any potential issues moving on in the future.
And I would certainly encourage you to do so, because it has been a problem more than it should have been in the past. I recognize, you don't have any control over the past, but I'm just communicating that it has happened several times to various neighborhoods, and nobody wants to take responsibility. Now, once in the near past, Buell's messed up on one, and they did take responsibility and reprinted and resent it all at their cost, which I appreciate.
And he did tell me about that when I was talking to them about the process, was that there wasn't one incident that they said was them. So, I mean, again, without me knowing specifics on anything else, I can't speak to them, but there is an instance of them, owning up to any mistakes.
As, it just seems like there should be able to have an answer of why a postcard would be sent to a neighborhood with two different agendas, two different dates. You know, I mean, they should be able to find the answer to that. Because, I mean, that's just crazy. But, we're trying to get away from the postcards. We're having some success at that, but it still remains the fact that the postcards are the most reliable means of communicating with the neighborhoods, regardless of who wishes that to go away. It still remains the most reliable source of communication, and it has to work. It absolutely has to work. Now, have we renewed Buell's contract yet?
Well, actually, that was the next thing I was going to say is in my education as handling this position, I've come to learn that it is time to go out for bid for another printing contract. So not that this whole discussion may be moot, but a whole new process may be devised or whatnot. So that is going to be coming as between my time and the time with the new specialist, the new liaison, to make that happen. But hopefully within the first few months of the next year, we'll have that in place, is my goal.
I would like to have a representative from the CIC involved in that process.
I'll look into that. I'm not sure what the policy is for that type of thing, but I'll look into that.
Yes, and let me know, because I think it's important that a third party be involved in that situation, where you can not only kind of like audit it as it goes along, but then also bring back assurances to the CIC members that their neighborhoods are trying to be taken care of conscientiously.
May I ask,
Yes, go ahead.
may I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Dan, if you're going out for bids, you also might ask about larger postcard sizes that might be available and or color. If they're going to be a competitive bid, I think Dan Berg got quite a competitive price on a color larger card. But I'm not sure about that. But if we're doing it out for bid, we might as well give several options. Some bids might come in better that way.
I think the city set a standard, if I'm not mistaken. So there is an actual standard for the postcard format, I believe size and the color and all that. So no.
Well, yeah, but there was
the city
also a
commission
design
also
standard
did
by
as
the
well.
city commission that they wanted.
Yeah, the city commission has decided what they want on that, so that's a done deal. Will?
I have a couple of questions because I wasn't here, and I apologize. I had a daughter who got married, so I wasn't here last time. But how many people were affected by these double postcards? Like, was it a whole group of people? Was it just one?
It was just yours, wasn't it, Carla?
What?
I think, I'm assuming here, because I haven't talked to everyone, it was a section of the neighborhood that got the previous postcard duplicated and then.
And then sent again?
Yeah.
Okay. And we were just discussing, I think we have, what, 2,000 addresses? 6 people showed up at our last meeting. I just don't, that we're not, you know, policemen or steering committee who are going to show up no matter what. I just question the cost effectiveness of the postcards, honestly. I just think it's a huge amount of money that we're spending every month, and for what? You know, maybe just putting, you know, a one-time cost of putting out some boards outside and putting those around the neighborhood for the week before. I don't know, I just feel like we're kind of flushing money down the drain.
I, for one, would be wide open for suggestions on what else we might do.
Kanema uses both. We use the postcards and the A-frames. And we're a small neighborhood, but the A-frames do work. People look at them. They've also reminded, oh, we've got that postcard. It's the event, we've got to go. We used our A-frames for our ice cream social. We had a trick-or-treating event in Kenema on the 28th. We also used the A-frames for that as well. And it's just another reminder. This is what we've got going. This is what we've got. We have 4 A-frames we put around on just main streets, I guess, of people getting in or out. And it works, and we bought the A-frames for fairly economical. We have 4, but then, we just, we're a smaller neighborhood, so we
How
just.
much do they cost though per?
We got 4 for, I think it was like $260.
I feel like in one month, we could pay for 6.
6, and these are
that's it.
whiteboards, so they are the printed Kenema Neighborhood Association. No one has stolen them, wanted them, or needed them for anything, and then they're white boards, so then we can just print on every time. This is the date that we're meeting, or a new neighborhood. When we have like an ice cream social or a special event, we just flip them over, and they're all whiteboards, and we put the big flyers on it. This is what it is, and so we're not messing up with our print. We thought about renting them out for people for garage sales, but that didn't go over well. Anyway, make money on it, So.
I have a question for Commissioner Morrow. If a neighborhood wants to have A-frames built, would we be able to use that out of the neighborhood's allocated fund? Or would we have to get special permission?
That's my understanding that it would be allowable.
Yeah, that's my understanding, because I know Caulfield does some A-frames
Kenemas
as
came
well.
from a allowable fund. I asked permission to have them, permission was granted. It was a little bit difficult to get reimbursed because we had to have a 1099 or something, and guys, we don't have any money. So eventually they realized, okay, this is where they came from, it had been approved, just reimburse them the money, but I think
So you could get a quote from somebody for A-frames, and with the understanding with the A-frame company that they would be reimbursed from the city, send the invoice, the billing invoice to the city for payment. Is that the way it should work?
I don't know specifically. My initial assumption would be if we're going to operate this, we'd probably operate it in a way that's very similar to how we do the postcards, in that the information would come to the liaison, who would then provide it to whomever the producer of the A-frame is, and then the billing will come to us directly, so we can go with all that instead of dealing with the reimbursement, which ends up adding steps and things to it. I can't say that definitively, but my understanding is I believe that's how that would function.
It makes sense that that's the way.
Yeah.
Kenema used Buzz White as a person who made the signs. They're a very big vendor for making signs, and when we said we wanted whiteboards, they knew exactly what we wanted.
How much did he charge you for your boards?
They're A-frames, we got 4 of them for, I think it was around $268.
For all 4 of them?
All 4 of them.
Oh, my gosh.
And so if we had a bigger area, they might give us, and there was a breakdown, but we didn't need 10.
Right, but that's the other thing, is if all of us are needing them, we could probably get them at
Better
a much better price.
Bulk rate.
A bulk rate, so
Sure, the city
I
has
wonder
a
if we
sign vendor,
There's a few different
Yeah.
ones that they use, yeah.
so.
So my problem with the A-frame, the only thing is my neighborhood's huge. So this last postcard, budget, I've already used a third of my budget. So I literally can only send 2 more postcards till next June. The problem I have is I have major roads, I got Malala Avenue. I'm scared if I put those out on Malala Avenue, they're gonna get taken pretty easily or vandalized. The other issue is, with traffic the way it's going faster on Malala Avenue, I think they'd have a hard time seeing them. I got whiteboards, and my whiteboards aren't very good. Like, I got, I spent my own money to get the dry eraser pens, and they don't work very good. So I think it depends on where you get it. It sounds like Kanima's whiteboards are way better. Mine were kind of a disappointment. And mine are really heavy. Like, I'm at the point where I have these gigantic ones and I need to delegate people in the neighborhood to put them out. And it's hard to find volunteers to want to do that. Or even like, I have a person on Lynn Avenue. I've got someone on Barclay Hills Drive. I said, store them in your garage and put them out right before the meeting, you know, and just pull them out, because literally putting one in my car, I think I had to use I have a Subaru Outback. I had to put it in my tailgate and on my back seat to get all 4 signs in. And they're awkward, and I'm pretty strong, so.
You know, a thought just occurred to me, and I don't even know if this is possible, but I can reach out to our utility billing company and see if there's a way we can segment by neighborhoods and have them go out in that. It would be cheaper. I mean, if we did the full 8.5 by 11 to the entire community this month for $1,000-ish, if we can possibly segment, or even if we don't segment, maybe if we just look at each month, you know, including the upcoming meetings on there, and look at that as a way of getting in everybody's mail. It'd be a lot more affordable, and it's going to go to everybody, and it's in something that they actually look at because it's in their utility bill. Hopefully they're looking at that. So that might be something we can look at to accomplish the goal of getting something out in the mail, but also doing something in a little bit more of a monetarily efficient manner.
But there isn't 25%, 30% of them don't actually receive a bill, though?
There are some that they get the online version, and we hit those are the ones that we have that we started the email list with. So yes, there's that. They do get an email version. I'd have to see if there's a way of digitally including that as well.
Yeah, because I get it, you know, electronically, and I just get a amount. I don't see a bill ever come to me. Yeah,
Okay.
it just gives me a dollar amount and says, here's the due date.
Okay.
You do have the bill available to you.
Yeah,
I
if
just
you
never
go
look
log
at
in.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
I look at the amount and say, sounds fair.
Yeah.
For the postcard too, to organize it, the people were asking about that. I literally have to get my postcard out 3 weeks in advance. If I'm waiting till 2 weeks before, it's probably gonna get there barely on time or right after. So we plan we do our steering, and it has to go out and ready to print in a week, just so that it gets there a week before the meeting.
I have a question. Is there a way to include, sorry, all of the information that we used to get with the utility bill in the mail? Is there a way to make a link that's easy to get to just for that utility bill information? Because like you said, I get the bill electronically, and I just look at the number, and I don't go to the link, because you have to type in your password and all that stuff. Is there just a way to get the link with? I mean, we used to get something similar to the trail news with our utility bill. There was information that we got with it.
And that was the mailer inserts I was speaking to. I'm not sure if there's a digital portal that has that information as well. I have to look into that.
Yeah, if they could send that with the bill, that would be kind of fun.
Well, if anybody's interested in getting some A-frames, it sounds like you should contact Linda, because theirs sounds like they're pretty well built and reasonably priced.
And I can put 4 of them in the back of my car. I have a little car, and I just put them out, and about the weekend before and after the meeting, I take them and bring them back there and keep them in the garage and store. We put them out. Fairly easy.
Sarah?
I got a couple of points. One is, I ask every meeting, and we're struggling to get people to show up, right? We have been ever since I've been a part of things. I ask every meeting how people heard of the meetings, and except for one meeting, this is my second point, they all say from the postcard, which devastates me, because I would love to do something else. The one meeting that the postcard failed through nobody's fault, but it just didn't happen. I made some signs, I put them up at the park, and we actually got a decent turnout. So that was our one shot since I've been a part of things where we had signage, and it did result in people showing up. So that's positive. back to the postcard, I work with printers and I'm a graphic designer, so I've done this for a lot of years. You never print a job until your client has signed off that says, this is what I asked you to print. You okay it, you put your initials on it, and then you give it to the printer, and then it's printed. The fact that nobody's doing that is kind of a bad situation that we should fix if we're still doing postcards. Somebody, it could be Hannah, who would have seen the file. It doesn't have to come back to us, but she could compare the two. This is what's going to be printed. This is what I sent them. Okay, it's good to go. But that's always part of a printing process, and we're missing that piece.
That's a darn good point,
Yeah.
because like,
We're missing
now
that
that you
piece
mention
here.
it, every time I've had something printed, they've come back with proof.
It's
Yeah,
standard
sure.
operating
So that's,
procedure. You never.
Sounds like a step that's has been eliminated.
It seems to have been. So that's something we need to fix if we're still moving forward with any kind of printing.
Yeah, thank you for that, sir. Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna beat that to death every meeting. Like,
It's the last one I'm in charge of, okay.
At least until you're no longer the president.
Yeah, right. That'll be pretty soon. Okay, everybody has received the spreadsheet. It's pretty informative about what money's being spent for, in my opinion. Does anybody have any questions about the spreadsheet?
I do want to point out, because somebody did ask, and just so everybody else knows, it does not reflect the $1,000 for the utility mailer, because that bill hasn't come in yet.
Oh, okay.
So once that comes in, then that will be reflected, but I can't put it in because I don't have it yet.
Yeah, okay. No questions about the spreadsheet? Well, that's good,
Let's
okay.
get more money.
I didn't see the flyer. It was supposed to be in the utility bill?
It was in the utility bill, is
was.
my understanding, yeah.
I saw it.
Okay, okay. I guess I missed it. I was looking for it.
Well, some of the people admitted here that they don't look at their utility
do.
bill, they just look at the price and pay it.
I'm old fashioned.
My wife always looks at the stuff in the utility bill.
But now that I
Always
publicly admitted
bitches.
that, I'm definitely gonna look at it so I don't get overcharged.
Ignore the part that says make checks payable to charity.
Okay, then, our next subject is the roundtable. And we'll start with Kanema, Linda.
We just had, the little Halloween trick or treat. It was very successful. It was very well received. We're planning something bigger and better for next year to, work. We've had a small little meeting. We were asking about why the city meetings aren't all in one spot in the website. We were thinking that maybe there'd be like one spot with city meetings, and that's where they're at. Someone was complaining they were trying to find the meetings, the times that they're on, but they were unable to find them, so there was that. And we are having a meeting on the 16th of November. And that will be the last of our funds. After that, we'll have to beg for money for postcards.
Dennis?
That's it. I agree.
Caulfield, Dan.
Okay, I hope it's working. We got our next meeting come up, November 28th. We didn't do a direct mailing. We're gonna put out the 2x3 A-frames.
Oh, I think your mic's not on, or if it's.
Okay, yeah, how's that? Okay, we're coming up with our new meeting is November 28th. We're going to be putting out A-frames. We did get A-frames from Buell, but we paid over $200 for the A-frames from Buell, but it was billed to the city. If I yours for $50, I'd buy 4 more just to add the ones I've got to have 8 to put out, but we put our A-frames out in high traffic areas. So we get a lot of coverage when the traffic is slow. And we put them at parks, the ones we put at parks to get good response. We've got an email list of the people from 2013 to 2017. I just sent that out yesterday. I've got 4 responses that people are going to come to meetings just off of that list. It was only a 90 email list. There was about 15 or 20 that had moved out of the area, and some of the people emailed back, hey, I moved out of the area, would you please take me off the list? And we're doing stuff with the city and the inserts, and we need to work with the city's web pages, and there's a lot of other things that we can get our point out. It doesn't cost us a lot of money. And I think we need to all be working together as a group to get some of these ideas together. And she's got costs for A-frames that are cheap. Buell's prints the 2x3 thing full color for $25, which I think is a reasonable price. With the 8-inch backer board. So, but I think we all need to start working together to pass along our knowledge to other people on our costs or stuff. And I think we need to work with the neighborhood associations that are not active. I think we need to, do a virtual meeting and see if we can get some more people, active in those areas. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Unionville, Carla.
We have a meeting next Tuesday, the 14th. Finally, after since I've been chair, we've tried to get the free clinic to come out, and it's gone through a lot of changes from being in my neighborhood, and a good amount of people from St. John the Apostle, who helped found the free clinic, is now completely changed to different management, and they're coming to our next meeting, which I'm excited about because I've been trying to get a hold of them for 2 or 3 years straight, and it's been really hard to get someone to call you back there. But I'm excited because they're coming on Tuesday. And then the other one is an update from the farmer's market since it's moved, and the update of the winter market. So that's pretty much it for me.
Ellendale, Josh.
So we had our meeting next day after the last CIC meeting, and we had the mental health, what was their name? I forgot it. NAMI, yes.
Clackamas.
Yeah, NAMI Clackamas. It was great information. It really was. We really actually had a lot of engagement from everybody that was there. And very, very good organization. Definitely recommend you have them to your neighborhood if you haven't already. Absolutely.
It absolutely drew new faces also. Make note of that. New faces showed up.
Okay.
Yep, for sure. We had our discussions with the city police and fire and all that, and kind of pounded on the city police a little bit about crime statistics, because we haven't seen any of those. So we're hopeful to see those sometime in the future. Hopefully at our next meeting, we'll see. Additionally, on the 24th, we had a courthouse update as well, and that all seems to be well. They reported that they're planning to have the last concrete, structural concrete at least, for the roof done at the end of November, and then they're going to start wrapping all that up. So that was a pretty good meeting there. And our next meeting is in January. Yep.
Sarah, do you have anything?
The only thing I wanted to add was, oh gosh, now I forgot it. Shoot.
She had one thing to remember.
I had one thing to remember, and it's gone.
Well, we can...
The pressing for the crime statistics is by neighborhood. That's what we're pushing for, okay? So that makes a difference to people, and that's what we're pushing for. That's it. Thanks.
Getting to that age, huh?
No, well past.
McLaughlin, Denise?
We've asked for that information as well, and sometimes we get it and usually we don't. So we had a meeting last Thursday, and we had kind of a tree park theme, yeah. So Samantha Wolf came from the Natural Resources Committee, and the things we learned from her were that they're going to be doing an ash tree inventory because of the green ash borer beetle. Emerald, yeah, emerald. And they are doing an experiment with pollinator strips. They've got one along on the promenade going to see how that goes. And then we had Christina Smith talk to us about Friends of Trees. They're going to be doing a planting in December 2nd and 15th. And they're doing a pruning workshop in January. And they've got a website that you can find out more information about that. Then last but not least, Dee Dee Dahlstrom came and talked to us about the Oregon City Parks Foundation and gave us some information about that and handed out their bottle return bags for their fundraising efforts. So that was pretty interesting. That's about it. We had a ice cream social September, yeah, at the library park, and it was our first attempt. It was pretty fun. But we're still struggling with getting the word out and getting people to come to the meetings after COVID. We used to have a crowded room and at the library, and we're having to meet at the Baptist Church because we can't get into the library because we need 2 more people to train to be room monitors.
We have 3 now.
Do we?
Yep.
They're trained?
Yeah, we have 3 people that are trained.
Awesome.
But the problem is that really we need to swap with other neighborhoods because, you know, otherwise we're not able to participate in the meeting.
Around in the hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's happened.
So I don't know, is anybody else, is there a communal list of people who have been, that we can share?
Anima's available. They have it.
We have 3.
Okay,
It's
Yeah,
Ken
maybe
and
we could
Ron.
work that out
Okay.
okay.
going forward.
Cool. So our next meeting is,
December,
I-
well,
it'll be, this is November,
steering
December, it'll be
committee.
January.
Yeah.
It'll be in January. Yep, so that's it.
Will, did you have anything?
no, she covered it all.
Park Place, Steve.
So our last meeting was a couple of weeks ago, and we didn't send out postcards, and I think we got 2 people that were not on the steering committee. And half the steering committee didn't come. But we had a presentation from Captain Pagano, and I thought he did a great job, and congratulate him on his promotion. Our next meeting will be on November 20th. And we will have Nami Clackamas there. And we will also have Pete Walter to discuss Park Place Crossing and where we go from here. So.
Okay, I think Emily is out there from Rivercrest.
Yeah, I'm here. Not a whole lot of updates since last time. I think I had mentioned before that originally we had 3 people on the steering committee, myself included, and unfortunately the secretary and the vice chair, due to scheduling conflicts and timing, are not able to continue. So we're kind of in a dormant stage right now. My schedule also doesn't really allow for doing all of the things required to have regular meetings, but I'm sending out a newsletter, and we're kind of just like actively soliciting for more support there. And yeah, Friends of Trees had reached out and to do a mental health presentation, so also exploring options of doing a virtual meeting, because it seems like a lot of the people who had attended meetings in the past, in-person meetings, for whatever reason couldn't continue to do in-person meetings, but if it were a Zoom option, that they would be more apt to participate in the future. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. I also wanted to mention that Rivercrest has a lot of A-frame signs. If anybody needs some, I'd have to, I guess, talk to our old steering committee members to make sure it was okay. We'd have to keep a couple, but I think we have like probably close to 20 A-frames. the signage is, it's not like, you can't write on it, so it's something where like the text is kind of like a fixed text, but I think there's probably like a cheaper option instead of like, you know, buying new frames, just to buy the sign part of it that can be pulled in and out, you know, for each meeting. So yeah, if anyone is needing those A-frame signs, please shoot me an email.
What size are those?
Gosh, they're probably like 3.5 feet tall by like maybe 2 feet wide, something like that. I think they're kind of like a standard size. They're not huge, they're not small.
That would certainly be a cheaper alternative for people, to just get
Yeah, and I
the
don't know why we
signage to
have
put
so
on
many of
those
them.
A-frames, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a piece of vinyl. Like you could probably just buy like a $2, you know, corrugated vinyl, and then, you know, with like a dry erase marker or something, waterproof, just write on it. Yeah, I don't know why we have so many of them. Like, and it was even a struggle, like, you know, when we had the two other steering committee members to get all of those signs put out, because like, again, there's so many of them, and Rivercrest doesn't have like a ton of, I mean, we can put them in the park, but we certainly don't need 20 to do that, so.
Okay, well, those of you interested, then contact Emily, and that might be a good resource. Great. It's amazing what we can come up with a group of people that just open up their minds and voices to let us know. Okay, thank you, Emily, for that. Our next person would be Commissioner Marl.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'm always happy to have a conversation about postcards, and so I'm grateful for the robust discussion we had tonight. It's like I say, postcards are definitely a part of the solution, but they're not the entirety of the solution. If the city were investing in anything else where the success rate was as low as it is, I think our residents would be upset with us. And so postcards are always going to be a part of it because it's the only way we can contact all of our households. But on the other hand, I'm really excited by the work that Jared and now our new community engagement specialists are going to continue doing to make sure that we're reaching more people. And thank you again, by the way, for having Matt Zook here last week to clarify budgetary matters. I am grateful that we were able to secure that increase, and by having those standards on the postcards, I'm hoping that I'll be able to show to my colleagues that further increases down the road are warranted because this committee is a good steward of those resources. We did have a really good memorial last Friday honoring fallen officer Robert Libke. It was his 10-year it was 10 years since we lost him, and it's crazy to think about that it's been that long. But it was a great ceremony. His wife and his kid were there, as well as a good showing from the community. And so that's something that we will never forget, but it's just crazy to think that it's been so long since that happened, because it does feel like just yesterday. Tomorrow we have a joint work session with our counterparts from the Westland City Council. Apart from our bridge, we have a lot more in common. We both have a very high interest in what goes on with tolling, so we'll be discussing that. And then the other big topic is homelessness. And one thing that I'm always trying to relay to our colleagues across Clackamas County is that Oregon City cannot be the sole proprietor of all of the homeless solutions in Clackamas County. We can no longer handle other communities having their police drop off homeless people in this community because it's not fair to us. And that brings me to another thing, which gets me a little upset, is a couple weeks ago, I got a call from our Metro Councilor, Christine Lewis. She called to let me know that Clackamas County staff had inquired to Metro staff whether they would be able to use Metro Housing Bond dollars. This is something that voters approved in 2020. Whether they could use Metro Housing Bond dollars to fund the new proposed navigation center on Main Street, and they were told that they could. No outreach was given to any of us on the city commission. So after I got this call, I talked to my colleagues, and all of them confirmed that none of them had been told as well, including the mayor. And so when I heard this from Councilor Lewis, it was the first that any of us had heard about it. And Clackamas County did go ahead and award $10 million to help fund capital improvements necessary for this navigation center. And it's just very frustrating that we were not a part of that. And it's something, again, that we tell over and over to our partners, is that we cannot be the repository for everyone's homeless issues. And the most insulting part is that it was on their consent agenda. It wasn't even an item that they really discussed. Someone did say that the commissioners were involved, and well, I can say that we were involved at the beginning when they were trying to discuss what the preliminary outline would be. There was no such conversation about whether we approved about the direction this would be going. And so that's very frustrating, and we're going to continue to be asking questions, especially because many of us heard about what happened in Happy Valley, or just outside of Happy Valley, with the proposed Project Turnkey site. The community was notified of that, and they had the opportunity to comment on that, even though it's in an unincorporated area. And now when we have something proposed on our main street, they don't even have the courtesy to tell us. And so we've had a lot of difficult discussions, and we'll continue to do that. So that's my big one that I especially wanted to notify our McLaughlin neighborhood friends about, because even though the city is not a part of financing this, we're trying to be a conduit to allow that community engagement to occur. And that's what I have.
Well, I certainly don't blame you for being upset about that situation. County communications is pretty poor. That's pitiful. It's terrible. And they brag about spending $10 million. Anybody else have anything?
I think we also might acknowledge who's pushing this agenda, and that he is very involved in our city. And has kept this from our commission, who always tries to look like a good citizen in our town. Dan Fowler, I'm sorry, it's that just needs to come out.
Steve, did you have?
You said they were awarded $10 million and it was on the consent agenda?
That's my understanding, yes.
The county's consent agenda?
Yes, the counties. And my understanding is that they need $20 million in total to break ground. So I don't believe they're all the way there yet, but that's a significant portion of what they need.
Do you know if they approved any money for actual housing? I mean, we've all heard about the center, but are there any hotels or actual beds for people to go to?
No.
Not as proposed. They would close at their closing hours, and everyone who's there would be re-released back into the
No, I know for the transition, or for that is, for that, but in the entire Clackamas County, from my understanding is that there are no beds here.
There are,
Very few.
Apart from the shelters, that's not something I can speak to, but there has been progress on the transitional housing front, apart from just the navigation center. And that is one area where I do commend the county for trying to equitably spread that throughout the county. And so those are not just shelters, but places where people can get supportive housing services to try and transition into more permanent housing. But as it relates to shelters, I believe Malala, they recently closed theirs. And in their meeting, they said the quiet part out loud, which was they can go to Oregon City. And so, again, that's something where we're continuing to push our counterparts across the county to pull their weight, because it's not fair to our residents, but it's also not fair to the homeless people who live in those communities to have to be shipped off to our community that they don't know to get services that they need.
So the transitional house thing isn't all what it's cracked up to be. I have one down the road from me, and it's run by a child sex offender, and he runs a house of women and children. And they don't cycle in 30 days like is committed. And not all of them are sober. So, and there's no Oxford living anymore. So it's not necessarily the safest solution, because people make money off of people who are homeless that get funding. So you have to be really careful about, oh, transitional houses that are helping the public. It's not the case. The other thing is I feel like we're a substitute of the hotel that was planned at by Clackamas Town Center. Okay, so that canceled out. The county was going to lose money from the state. So now it's going to happen in Oregon City so that technically the county can get state funding. So again, we're the guinea pigs on this whole thing. And the fact is you look at Chinatown in Portland. You know, I love Chinatown. I was back in the 90s as a kid. We had Chinese restaurants, tons that were at least a little bit more authentic to old Portland. And then we had the shelters come in, and there's a curfew, so they just let people out at night to do whatever they're going to do. And the bottom line is it took away our Chinatown, took away some of the culture of Portland. And we're going to have that here. And you know what? It's a consequence to our Main Street at this point, because we can't take, like Adam said, we can't take the responsibility for the entire county. I know West Lynn's looking at doing like a homeless type of area where the people are going to stay. And that's near kind of on the other side of their downtown, you know, their historic downtown. And, you know, there's balance in all this, but at the same time, I don't think we should be at the consequence of this for the county to get state funding. I think it's BS.
I have
Well,
something,
sure.
it's not related to the current discussion, it's something else, but I was recently targeted by a little scam, and I just wanted to bring it to your attentions in case you have your email public on the website, which I do, because I got one honest inquiry through there, so I kept it. But always look at, this was purportedly from the mayor, which you mentioning her made me think of it. Check the email address. The mayor's is pretty obviously the mayor of Oregon City, and this was not, but it was a pretty good approach for one of those. I mean, some of them are a little better than others. Just make sure you're aware and take a good look at things.
I've had that happen to me 3 times.
Yeah.
And every time, the verbiage in the message was quite obviously not the way I would have said something.
This one was a little tighter,
Anybody that
though.
really knew me knew it was some kind of a scam. And when I called the mayor about hers, that's what I told her, is that the way it was worded was obviously not from her.
Right.
So you gotta watch those. And then, like Sarah said, look at the address where it came from. That'll give you another good clue, but I'm telling you, it's happened 3 times with me, and it's just a pain in the rear to get it all straightened out again. It's just really a messy thing. I just thought of something, and going back to the postcards. We get somebody's email address, so we take their physical address matched. So we take their physical address off of the postcard mailings. What happens then if that person moves? That address is no longer on the list of notifications.
Hopefully, that person would do like Dan's had a few people and say, I moved out of the area, I'm no longer here. So we can then go back and cross-reference and put that address back on the mix.
Yeah, that'd be the only way that we'd be able to figure that out.
Yeah, and then, I mean, and I'm just thinking as I go here, there might be ways of looking at as, you know, the property turnovers and whatnot. There might be some ways to look into that.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else from anybody? This meeting is adjourned.
That